would take the time to talk to us today.
It's my pleasure. I'm so impressed by you guys doing this and all the trouble you've gone to and who you've reached out to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That means a lot to us.
Just one more thing I wanted to say about the project is that Carly and I were going to different X-Files events, and people were really opening up to us about how the X-Files had introduced them to their spouse, helped them through addiction, and made best friends across a continent. And we just thought, wow, this is so touching, and people are trusting us with their stories. And that's kind of how this came about. And then we started getting the cast and crew involved. So it was really that connection with the fandom that you created that kind of sparked this for us. So thank you.
Just imagine that in 1992, I was coming up with this idea, no idea of the impact it would have on people, that it actually, people can say it saved their life. That's a heavy thing. And, I'm just grateful. And there's something called the Scully effect that I'm sure you're familiar with, that people have actually pursued science and become doctors as a result of the inspiration from Jillian's character. So to me, that's all amazing stuff.
But Lauren and I opened up to the fandom to ask some questions that they wanted asked. We have our own, obviously, from the project. So I don't know how much time you have with us. Up to you.
Let's go for it.
All right, great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right, so let's get into it then. Thank you so much. So we've spoken to over 50 or 60 by now cast and crew members, and everyone has been telling us that the X-Files was such an incredible show to work on because of the experience with the whole cast and crew giving it their all every week. And these were industry professionals, and they said, hey, candidly speaking, that's not always the case. But on the X-Files, it was an incredible experience to work with such talented special effects, makeup artists, producers, directors, and of course, writers. So you were essentially making a movie every week, they shared with us. And, as fans, we can see that dedication and commitment come through on the screen every week. Can you tell us some of your best memories of that time?
Your first audience, you have the writers work together and to come up with ideas. Everyone kind of goes off and comes up with an idea, brings it to the table, as it were, and people have their comments. They start to bore the episode. The writer goes and writes the episode, and then it goes to script. And it goes out to the first audience, which is the crew. And it was always amazing to see how the crew reacted to each particular episode. And you could see them get really excited. And then you could see them on some other episode, maybe not quite so excited, but they were always engaged. And I think that's the mark of a special show, is when it's not just getting up and going to work every day. It's feeling a part of something, that's maybe, more significant.
Are there any monsters, mysteries, urban legends that you wish you had covered or done an episode about?
No, we really didn't do that many ghost episodes, and that seems like it's ripe for the X-Files. So I think that there were ways to tell ghost stories that we didn't go for. But I mean, with 218 episodes, I think that we covered a lot of the monsters, and maybe sometimes we covered them more than completely.
Well, we're from Jersey, so we're fans of the Jersey Devil show.
The Jersey Devil, right?
Out of all the places in the world, why is Fluke Man in New Jersey?
It's weird. Right before I was working on the X-Files, kind of in the thinking stage, and my wife and I took a trip across the country, driving and stopping in places, and we had just gone through New Jersey not long before, so I think that New Jersey was kind of like forefront in my mind. And I don't know, it's one of those things where I can't remember, but I can tell you that we took that trip, and I wrote about places like Pulaski, Virginia, that were part of that trip.
What can you tell us about Krychek's history that you didn't really explain on the show, or that we didn't see?
Well, Nick Lee wasn't the first choice for Krychek. There was another actor that we had liked very much, and then we saw Nick Lee in his performance in the episode previous. We had seen Nick Lee do something that I thought was just kind of such a natural. He had a reaction that was, it wasn't put on, it wasn't fake. It was he had actually become the character, and it got him the job. But he was always meant to be a foil. He was always meant to have a kind of mixed motives, and I think that played through well in the character. That's why he's one of the more important characters in the show to the mythology.
We love him. We had a great time talking to him. He was class.
I've never seen him sing, but David Duchovny said he actually got on stage with him at some point, and he couldn't believe Nick's voice, the range of it.
Frank Spotnitz has mentioned that you did plan or even draft some mythology for the third film before the revival materialized. So we were just wondering, perhaps seasons 10 and 11 derived from that script, or maybe not?
No, completely different. Actually, I wrote a script that was a terrible idea for a third movie, but at the time, I don't know what inspired me, but the reboot was not really a result of that script, gladly. The reboot was really taking individual characters, Mulder, Scully, the cigarette-smoking man, and in the end, William, and telling about what had happened to them, catching up with them, telling about each of their struggle. My struggle referred to each of their struggles.
Many fans were shocked that Reyes teamed up with the cigarette-smoking man. Why did you choose that ending for her?
I don't remember what the thinking was on that, to be honest. I'd have to go back and figure it out. But it made sense to me in the end, in that his pursuit of Mulder and Scully was her pursuit of Mulder and Scully. That they would end up together was unlikely, but I liked that idea. I liked that he told her in the car that William was his son, and that they would actually, instead of being driven apart, they would actually find a reason to come together. Lots to talk about with William.
But what were your plans with Agent Doggett if he had been available for season 10 or 11? Where did you want to go with him?
There were places I wanted to use him, but I thought I couldn't use him. There were places to use him, but I felt that it wasn't a big enough part for him. And we would have taken him away, I think, from other work that he was doing, or he would have to steal away from other projects that he was on. So I decided not to use him, and that was hard because we all love Robert.
I see. So you had mentioned William before.
Yeah.
Is Jackson Vanderkamp really William? Maybe he's a different hybrid. What can you tell us about the William that we saw in the reboot?
Oh, that's really William. I think what people don't appreciate, and it goes all the way back to William's birth, or at least his infancy, is when he moves that mobile in the very beginning. And what is that? How is that? This kid has a kind of supernatural quality. And I think everyone always attributed that to Scully, that came from Scully. But that was never in my mind that it was something inherited from her. It was something greater and different than that. And that's how you got the William that you saw in the series finale.
And can you tell us why he was smiling at the end?
I asked that question from the X-Files at the X-Files Preservation interview. That's a good question. Why is he smiling? And what did he get? What did he succeed at and what was his plan all along, and what would be some of his intentions by in that hotel room motel room telling Mulder that emphatically that he is not his father. Who's saving who there?
Just bring more questions for us. Now I gotta go back and rewatch it all again. I mean, I'm watching it, but you know.
As you know, here's let me say something about William. People made all these assumptions, and I know some people were really upset about it. But people made lots of assumptions, and I always thought there would be more X-Files episodes. I didn't think that last one was going to be the last. I thought there were always more stories to tell. So I would have answered a lot of those questions, or I think satisfied a lot more people with what came after episode 218.
Gotcha. Okay. Where do you, in your mind, envision Mulder and Scully today?
Today?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I would have flashed forward. I wasn't interested in dealing with that pregnancy. I don't know. I mean, I have some ideas, but I don't know if we'll ever get to ever see them. I think Jillian has moved off to obviously bigger and different things in her own career. So we'll see.
Many fans, as you touched upon before, they have strong feelings about the finale. And you've suggested maybe the fans are not asking the right questions. So can you tell us a little bit more about that? Can you give us maybe a small piece of that puzzle? What should we be asking? Maybe we should divert our attention elsewhere. What did we miss?
I'm going to give you one answer to that. And it's that everyone assumes that the cigarette smoking man had sex with Scully. And I want everyone to think about that is an assumption that you should question. And you should also know that the cigarette smoking man has lots of access to controls alien technology. And so there is something in that night of Scully's life that needs to be explained and explored.
All right. Keep us guessing. Keep us thinking. I love it. From the finale, a few questions were asked. Is Skinner alive? Is Reyes alive? Is CSM alive? Or is we already think he's immortal? Those were part of the same question.
I'm going to say that my answer is maybe for all three of those characters.
I thought you were going to say nobody really dies on X-Files.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were going to go back to that.
I've said that before, right?
Yeah, a few times. All right, so now we're going to delve into our questions. You've said Kolchak the Night Stalker was an influence on the show, and you paid homage to it. You did the same with the Twilight Zone. What other shows, writers, directors had an influence on you as a writer, director, producer, right? Or the show as well that you haven't mentioned or focused on?
Now's a good time to go back to that Robert Patrick question. The movie was Fire in the Sky, and that was, I liked that movie, and it was something of an influence. I think that there's an influence that is underappreciated, and I've mentioned it before, and that's Sherlock Holmes. I read all of Sherlock Holmes when I was a kid, and I loved that relationship of Holmes and Watson. And I actually paid homage to it in the episode Fire, when the character played by Amanda Pays refers to a three-pipe problem, which is what an adage of Sherlock. So I think that goes underappreciated, that point-counterpoint relationship of Mulder and Scully. But they would have to be Night Gallery when I was a kid, Twilight Zone. I've mentioned before Kolchak the Night Stalker, which I thought was, as a kid, the scariest thing I'd ever seen on television. I loved it, and I carried it with me all those years. It's interesting that the person who hired me to develop television pilots at 20th Century Fox was a fan of The Night Stalker as well. And so when I came to him and said, this is something I'd like to do, he said, great, this is something I'd like to do.
Interesting. I love it.
I had pitched the idea of doing Kolchak the Night Stalker in a twist on Kolchak the Night Stalker to Brandon Tartikoff at NBC, and he wasn't interested. And the rest is history.
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to the intro. What's it like to step back and look at this fandom that you created that has stretched just worldwide?
It's not something I think about every day. Life moves on. But it seems like every week I get a letter from a fan, and some of them I can answer, some of them I cannot. And so I'm sorry for the people that I can't answer, and there are reasons for that. And I'm happy for the people that I can answer and the connections that I've made with those people. People write really heartfelt notes, and it's touching, and it makes you think, remember, know that the X-Files isn't just a television show that ended in 2002, came back briefly, but that it actually lives on in people's memories.
You see these kids, 10 years old, who are discovering the show. I mean, how insane is that to think that you're saying it continues to live on? These kids weren't even around when the show rebooted. Well, I should say when it ended, but it's crazy to think that.
It was one of the things about coming back and doing the reboot. I never wanted to think of it as a reboot. I just wanted to think about it as a continuation of the show many years later. Was knowing that there were fans out there, or I should say, there was an audience out there that may not really know the X-Files, and you had to make sure that they could play catch-up on the X-Files. And so I took some heat for the way I approached coming back with the mythology, but I really felt that there needed to be a point of new connection for a new audience, and also to catch the old audience up with where I believe that those characters would have been, a dozen years later.
What storyline that you may have come up with that you wish you had done, that you had made an episode of?
Oh, that's hard to say. Let me see. I had an idea. There was a movie that when I was young called Wolfen, and not many people saw it. I don't know if it was much of a hit, but I just thought it was an interesting idea, and Albert Finney was in it, who's always good, one of my favorite actors. But I wanted to do sort of an homage to Wolfen, and it was involving Mulder and Scully going to a small town, and then something happened with wolves, which actually play into a lot of the, I would call it, classic UFO mythology.
Speaking of being freaked out, it seems that you can predict the future when it comes to UFOs and conspiracies and a global pandemic. So watching 2020 unfold, can you tell us what that was like? It was almost like seeing the X-Files brought to the real world.
I owe a lot of that to Ann Simon, who was our science advisor on the X-Files, who brought me CRISPR-Cas, which no one knew about at the time, and that now makes that episode seem prophetic. But I think this idea of trust no one and deny everything, those are, those couldn't be more current as catchphrases. I think also we could have used question everything, because I think that's where we are in life today. So I think the X-Files dealt with conspiracies when conspiracies were not as common. And, Darren Morgan refers to the period we're in now as post-conspiracy, POCO, he calls it, because all there are conspiracies now. No one agrees on what the truth is anymore.
Can you tell us what it was like recording a message for the space station?
So strange that we would actually be communicating with people. I mean, a world away. When they also sent us for the final wrap party, the ultimate wrap party, they sent us a message from the space station as well. So that was awesome. Yeah.
Cool.
That's
I
cool.
love that. As a fan yourself of the show, do you have a favorite episode or a favorite storyline?
It's hard to say. Favorite episode. I have so many favorite episodes. The X-Files, I want to answer it this way. The X-Files did something that you did back then, but you don't do now, which is we were an episodic show. As you say, every episode was a little movie. And so you got a chance to do so many things. There are episodes, I think of little snippets of episodes that I love and I love to think about. When you saw in that mythology episode, the submarine coming up and the polar ice cap and the conning tower coming through, you have no idea what it took to make that happen. And hats off to Bob Goodwin, our executive producer, co-executive producer, I think at the time, up in Canada, who pulled that off. I mean, we had to get ice from the many ice rinks in Vancouver that when they clean off the ice, they generate residual ice, and we brought that in, packed it around, and to me that is, I always say on the X-Files, we didn't know what we couldn't do, so we tried everything, and most often the crew and the artistic people, everyone pitched in to make so much happen on a slim budget that we had, and it's what made the show, gave that show special life.
So there's some talk about an animated show.
Yeah.
Have there been any updates about that?
Well, it's interesting. When the pandemic started, almost everyone was out of work. But some of the people that weren't out of work were the animators. And so I thought, there's so much of I thought we could have come back on the reboot and done all comedy episodes. That people would have been happy if every episode was a comedy episode. So I think the X-Files has a comedic element to it that is kind of ripe for an interesting approach. And so I kind of threw it out there. I thought, if animators are working, let's put people to work. It really was, while I want it to be, and it can be something really funny and endearing, and there's two writers came in with a really interesting approach. I think it really was twofold, the inspiration, and that is that let's see if we can do something funny, and also let's put people back to work.
What does Disney have a plan, if any, for X-Files and its legacy?
I haven't talked to them about that. I think that they've been very busy over there. And when Jillian said she was hanging up her hat, as it were, I think that maybe that people heard that loud and clear. The show is a Mulder and Scully show, and even though we did the show without Mulder, I didn't imagine ever doing the show without Scully.
Everyone that we've had the pleasure of speaking with so far, we've asked them the same question. So we're really looking forward to hearing your response. What is your message to the fans?
one of the messages comes from the second movie, Don't Give Up. I think that's something I want to say to people. That actually came. There was a religious scholar named Houston Smith who was really highly regarded in his field, and I got a chance to see him speak one evening, and he talked at length about mythology and religion, and it was just such an interesting talk. He was such a engaging speaker. And someone at the end of the night said, they asked a question that just made me cringe, which was, how would you sum up your philosophy in a sentence? And I thought, oh my gosh, this guy has just spent all this time, going in depth things, and it's the complexity of the world that he lived in. And but he takes the question in stride, and he gets this twinkle in his eye. He's an elderly man by this point, and he gets this look in his eye, and he says, "Don't give up." And I thought, that's actually, it could be cliche, it could be overused, but I think that it is, it's the secret. It is, it is something to live by.
Just been such an inspiration to so many around the world, and it's just thank you. And the characters you created, an incredible world. If you will.
I didn't do it alone, and I think that sometimes goes unappreciated. I did it with the help of so many people, the people that I worked most closely with, the writers and the producers, Frank Spotnitz, Vince Gilligan, Morgan and Wong. The show would not be the show it is without Morgan and Wong. Gordon and Gonza wouldn't be the show it is without them. I'm going to forget some people here, but I want to, I have to say Kim Manners and Rob Bowman as our go-to directors, David Nutter. There's so many people who came together to, I think of the production designers, Graham Murray and Corey Kaplan in Los Angeles, Graham Murray in Vancouver, Corey Kaplan in Los Angeles. People who, help make these beautiful pictures. And I think sometimes they go forgotten or unappreciated for their tremendous contributions. But it goes down the list. I think another person that no one talks about is Randy Stone, who helped with he was the original casting director. He brought me David and Jillian. And people don't think about it. People don't think about Rick Milliken, who worked on the show, the rest of the show after Randy. Randy actually did the casting on Millennium as well, so I'll be forever thankful to him for that. I think there are these people who go underappreciated. I'll even throw it out to Sandy Bruschow, the head of Fox Network at the time we were casting the show, who wanted something. He had something in mind, and I had something else in mind with David and Jillian, and he let me go with unknowns. And I mean, it's an interesting thing. It's not so much that he brought me people; it's what he allowed, and there's something powerful in that too. I'll also say that I had a note session with the head of current television at 20th Century Fox, and early on in the episodes, he says, what I'm not feeling here is that we're not wrapping each episode up with an explanation. And I said to him, these are things, supernatural things, paranormal things that can't be explained. That's the interesting part of the show. And he listened to me. And same thing with that pilot episode where we had the legend come up and say this was per the network's notes, per their thoughts, is we had that legend come up and that said this episode is based on actual events. We had to do that once, and then we didn't have to do it anymore. And in the pilot episode also, the main titles didn't appear like they do. Those main titles were being worked on, and so that first episode, it's my recollection, didn't have The Truth Is Out There on it. that came in the second episode. And I actually had something else in mind for The Truth Is Out There. And I kind of let it fly amongst the people I was working with. And everybody said, yeah, it's okay. And that's when I came up with The Truth Is Out There. And here we are today.
How did you come up with The Truth Is Out There? Where did it?
Well, it's that double entendre. It's, the truth is out there and the truth is far out there. So it's just one of those lucky things where it popped into my head.
We hope with the project that, you're just naming all these amazing people. We've been lucky to speak with many of them.
Everyone's enjoyed it. People have contacted me to say what a great job you guys are doing. And so I'm still in contact with a number of the folk that I work with. It's...
We hope that it shows what how much the fans appreciate it.
I have to say, for me, this interview is about giving back. It's about giving back to everyone who has given so much attention and love to the show. And it really kind of pays off for the love that we gave the show when we were doing it. So, love is eternal.
Yeah.
Where did Kim Manners his reference "Let's kick it in the ass"? Is that something he just said when he was direct? I know you had it on the grave in that episode. What was his reference to that? Like, I know some directors always had something they said, but was that something that he said when he was directing?
It was so perfectly Kim, because here's this artful person, this person with such a beautiful eye. I mean, really, the show looks like it looks because of Kim and Rob and Bob Goodwin, David Nutter, these directors I've mentioned before. But Kim has this, he's an artist, and yet he's also one of the crew. And he, could get down and dirty, and kick it in the ass was the perfect catchphrase for Kim. Because not only was he a director, he was a commander.
We've had more fun than I could ever tell you, and we don't want this project to end.
Yeah. Well, I'll talk to you again, and I'm sure I'll have something new to say.